Thanks very much to those of you that have joined us so far. Can see some familiar names and people that we've worked with for a fair period of time. So thank you very much for taking the time to join. And those of you who haven't worked with us before, welcome to our Fast Check webinar. Just give it another couple of minutes just while we can still hear quite a few people join in. We just have a quick raise of hands from those of you that are on the call. If you can see my my screen okay, it should be a Fast Check webinar screen that you can see. Thanks very much for that. I've just seen a couple of hands go up there, so appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so I think we'll start if that's okay. So as I said, very warm welcome to everybody who has taken the time and time out of their busy days. I'm sure everybody's schedules are very busy at this time of year, so very grateful for that. My name is Kerry Redmond. I'm the head of growth for Giant Screening. I'm joined by our head of product, Kelly, and Hello. Together today we are going to take you through our Fast Check service. So we will go through what Fast Check is, so for those of you that aren't familiar with it, and we'll talk about how the adoption of Fast Check in the last 6 months has really helped and impacted on a number of our customers, and what that looks like and what that looks like both now and in the future. So happy to take if people want to type some questions as we go through in the chat box at the side, but we will have a Q&A session at the end that Kelly's going to join for. But please feel free to pop some questions in the chat box as we go through. I understand it's sometimes better in the moment if you want to ask those questions. Without further ado, this is the moment where the technology doesn't work for me. So what is Fast Check? Fast Check is our cutting-edge solution. We work with our partners who are on the call today. So hi to our partners, Confer. We've got a really strong, trusted relationship with those guys. Fast Check is a way of verifying a candidate's employment background faster, in a more compliant way, and in a way that allows the candidate, the client, and us as the screening partner to be in more control of the process. So from a perspective of a candidate, it allows for a much more smoother transition to their pre-employment screening. From a client's perspective, once Fast Check is deployed, it allows for their processes to be met, their timeframes, their recruitment drives to be satisfied. And from a Giant Screening perspective, we know that we're compliant right the way throughout the screening process. What that is as a solution is we utilise mobile banking data of the candidate to look at the history of the candidate. So what that does is when the candidate provides their consent, and we'll show a little bit more detail later on as to how that works, it links the candidate's bank details, and it shows payments that's been going in solely into the candidate's bank account for the period of time in which the candidate's undergoing that check, so that's screening. So why did we introduce Fast Check, and how did we do it, I guess is the question. So we've been working with the guys at Confer for a long time now, but we're talking specifically about the last 6-month period. We wanted to look at ways of improving efficiency in the pre-employment screening process. We wanted to look at automating different ways We wanted to be innovative. Our clients were frustrated in lots of circumstances around that employment timeline. They wanted to verify it, yet they felt that the speed in which that was being done, through no fault of anybody really, just challenges around referees, challenges around acceptable referees, challenges around length of time that we were having to go back in a candidate's history due to regulatory requirements. They were all frustrations of lots of our customers, and whilst we were satisfying the need, and we were doing it at that time, we felt that sometimes that there was a much more effective way to do that. So that's a number of the reasons why Fast Check was deployed, but also we wanted to address some of the industry demands. So Fast Check ticked a number of boxes when we were looking at how the industry was evolving. We were looking at speed, we were looking at accuracy, but ultimately we wanted to maintain that compliance element. We wanted to make sure that where we worked against a number of regulatory standards, whether that be BPSS, whether that be BS 7858, whether that be within the financial services sector, aviation space, you know, we're still working with, but you know, we're very confident that that will evolve as well. We wanted to address a number of those industry demands, and we're very thankful that that has since happened in the 6 months. So what's been the impact of that then over the last 6 months? What has been the impact of that? I can see a hand up there. Is there a question, or is there is it just left up from before? So if there's a question, just if you don't mind popping it in the chat box for me at the side, and we'll cover that shortly. The impact of Fast Check has for us been phenomenal, and far greater than we ever hoped that it could be, really. It's shown us with our customers where we've always had valued partnerships, and our customer approach has always been very much valued on that partnership, trust-driven element. The importance of collaboration has been highlighted right from the very beginning of the adoption and deployment of Fast Check. It's allowed us to have a close working relationship with customers. It's enabled HR teams to understand the critical points in which candidates can be satisfied, at which point they can join their induction programs, at which point we're able to strike a balance between ensuring that the compliance is right, ensuring that our processes are fit for purpose, but also ensuring that their recruitment demands are satisfied as well. That's a little bit easier in some sectors, so where there's not a really high regulatory requirement, and the client is in control of their own pre-employment screening and how that is dictated, that is a little bit more effective in that space. But overall, we've seen a fairly significant transformation on that front. We talk about the candidate journey, and in pre-employment screening, ongoing screening, we talk about the importance of that candidate journey. And we all know in a very candidate-driven market, the candidate is king, so to say. And what we want to make sure is that that candidate journey is seamless. We don't want to lose candidates throughout the process as a result of pre-employment checks or the length of time that those checks can take. So Fast Check has transformed the onboarding process from a candidate engagement perspective, a candidate communication perspective, and ease of use. We're able to explain from the very beginning of the process when that check will be completed by, because we've got a lot more control of that process. We know what that looks like from the very beginning, because where we've worked in collaboration with our customers, we've said at the end of X number of days, if the standard referencing process hasn't worked, we've not received the results that we want to receive, we know we can deploy Fast Check either at the beginning where we know it's most effective, or we can use it as a backup option at the very end. So we know that the majority of those candidates will be through in X number of days, whatever is fit for that purpose at that given time. We'll demonstrate a little bit as we go further on what that candidate feedback actually looks like, but we've taken it really seriously in terms of what that feedback for our customers, but most importantly our candidates as well. your candidates are your biggest advocate in this, because ultimately, happy or unhappy, they generally will feed back to our customers. So we take great care of our customers, but ultimately, of our candidates, we want to know about speed. We want to know that it's convenient for them, and we want to provide them with that assurance that their information is being appropriately looked after, appropriately utilised, and appropriately maintained during the period of which that's appropriate. So Fast Check answers a lot of that for candidates, and we're able to articulate that to them very easily at the start of the process. We've got quite a high connection rate or adoption rate. The candidates that we talk to and that have gone through this process in the last 6 months, we'll show you some figures as we go through, but it's been a very, very high connection rate. Candidates are willing to engage with this service, and where previously there may have been some reluctance from the customer network about what that might have looked like from a candidate perspective, when we go through, we actually see that the exception or the connection rates of candidates are very, very high, and in some respects, much higher than we may have envisaged that they would have been. So again, that has been a really positive impact for us. And ongoing refinement from a perspective of, we want to make sure that when a customer works against a regulatory requirement, so whether that be BPSS, whether that be 7858, whether that be in the aviation space, the defence space, and the financial services space, we want to know that ultimately what we are doing at the front end of the process, when the regulator comes in to do an audit, or it goes to final sign off, or it's subject to a specific level of audit, that this will be accepted as either a workaround or a one solution, if you like. So remove referencing from the requests, which is what some customers do, and put Fast Check in. We want to know that ultimately that is going to be accepted, and we know now versus where we were 6 months ago, the exception rate of that is much, much higher. And we know that from customers who have been audited. We know that from where we've had specialists provide, industry insight, and we've done a lot of rigorous compliance checks ourselves, investigation work. We've linked in with a number of regulators to understand where this sits in the process, and we're thankful that we're in a very comfortable position with that now. So what does that actually look like, and what does that trial look like? So we run thousands of candidates through this process on a monthly basis. We had, so for the 90% of candidates, that has allowed us to, 90% of candidates took this as an option. They opted to go through Fast Check as a solution. Is that the candidate doesn't need to give their consent, the candidate can give consent, and 90% of the candidates that were invited gave their consent. Of that, 75% of those candidates, that information was provided the same day. So we're not talking about long delays. The biggest factor of Fast Check is what it says on the tin. It's a fast service. It allows customers to gain that speed of knowledge very, very quickly about somebody's background. 80% of that 75, 80% of that 90% were enabled to have a positive impact on the turnaround time of their screening. So compared to candidates who were running non-Fast Check solutions with a similar number of references, we saw that there was a significant improvement in the turnaround time of that candidate, and in turn that obviously works in the is beneficial to our customers. Inductions are filled, start dates are satisfied, recruitment drives are met, lots of different positive factors in that space that I'm sure each of you have all know around the improving turnaround times of candidates. So when we think about the candidate journey, and I'll take you through in a second what that looks like, 2 to 3 minutes it takes the candidate to give their consent to share data, and from that point they don't really need to do anything else beyond there. I'll show you what an example report looks like when that comes back. And of those candidates, 60% of them were completed in under 6 hours. with 100% compliance across all fronts. So that's across all security standards that we've deployed it in. It's across all specific company standards. And I think that's a real testament to itself, because ultimately it's very, very difficult in some circumstances when you work with security controllers or regulators who have got very specific criteria for their pre-employment screening to have 100% compliance and be sat at 100% compliance. That in itself speaks for the quality and the success of the last 6 months. I've seen a couple of hands go up there. Darren, have you got a question? I don't mind just taking a quick question for a second. I think mics are on mute at the moment. If you want to just unmute yourself to ask your question. Oh, I think I might need to do that. Just bear with me 1 second. Oh, okay. Sorry, I've just seen that was from. That's fine. Okay, I'll carry on and we'll take some questions at the end. So some of the fast check results for Giant so far. We know that it's easy to adopt. It allows a quick onboarding process. The implementation period really is very, very quick. Our service delivery team have really worked to refine that, and there's very, very little impact from a customer perspective. We spoke about it already, but the candidate experience has been significant. The high response rate at that first point of contact has been very, very good. So we know that customers are satisfied that the candidates are being looked after. They know they're from a speed and turnaround perspective, it's very, very quick. And then again, from a speed perspective, it's instant, where the information is instantly available to us, and we're able to provide that assurance to our customer. Because ultimately, if we think what we're trying to achieve here, we want to give assurance to the customer networks that those individuals that they are hiring do have the backgrounds that they claim to have had throughout their interview process. So by being able to satisfy what that person's background looks like from a perspective of consistent payments going into their bank account, whether that be from their employer or any other payments that they may have received. So, for example, from benefit system, that will be very clearly detailed to us. So we're able to provide that background to our customers for them then to be have that comfort of what that looks like for them. You can just see there on the side, there's some stats there. 67% of 5-year employment packages are completed the same day. So that's a really powerful stat. That's where a customer doesn't have a regulatory screening requirement. So they have their own in-house standards. There's no, say, for example, financial services where they have a 6-week regulatory window request. That doesn't include that. That is, it's just purely for customers who have their own standards. And 25% of those were completed within less than 1 hour. So really, we are talking instant information here in relation to a candidate's background. So what does that look like then from a candidate perspective? Can see some images there of what it looks like on a mobile device, and I think one of the biggest benefits as well is that this actually is mobile enabled. So what you can see there genuinely is the images that the candidate sees on their mobile when they run through. So it will give a full overview of what we're asking them to do. It'll provide the details. It'll show what we're trying to achieve. We'll tell them that we're trying to verify who they've worked for, when they worked for. It will verify or bring any gaps of employment to the table. And it will also show them how we handle their data securely, how that data is looked after, and at what point that data is then passed over to the customer for the customer to review. It will then tell them the process. So that will talk around selecting their bank account, consenting to the sharing of their data, which today is very, very important, as we all know. And it will look at it will then explain to the candidate that will then automatically detail their employment history. So you can see on the final mobile device there, someone was currently working quite late at night at 10 to 10, but it will show the connection, and on that example it's connecting to a Santander account, and it'll provide it'll ask for the full name, the account number and sort code, and then it's sharing any transactions as well. You can see there, so the candidate experience is really important to us. And what we were really keen to do is make sure that this was done in as fewer steps as possible, but also making sure that the candidate was fully engaged and aware of what we were going through at any given time. So you can see from the mobile screens there that a number of banks are linked to this, a significant number of the major banks are linked to this as well. You can see some examples on the left hand side there, and it shows you what the images are as we transact through. The second screen is important, and again, a Santander example. If a candidate has more than one bank account, so for example, they have a saving account and they have a general account that they use day to day, actually gives the candidate the option to select which bank account that they utilise or the data that they provide. It doesn't have to be for all of those bank accounts. So it can just be the bank account that the candidate was paid into. That then will connect through to the service, and then it will tell the candidate that has been successfully connected. And then from there, the candidate doesn't need to do anything else. That the candidate has linked their bank account into that data, and it's given us the consent to be able to verify and view the data through their bank account. And again, it's only inbound transactions that we're able to see. We're not able to see that they go to McDonald's 10 times a day, for example. So yeah, that's an important bit as well. And from there, generally within 2 hours, we see the results, sometimes much quicker. The candidate then can receive a tailored communication, which will signpost them to what that next steps looks like once we've got that results to be able to understand and manipulate. So on the left hand side, you can see what it looks like, what that final report looks like. So again, a Barclays bank account example on this front, you can see their salary coming in. There's 11 transactions, so we know that over a period of however their payment cycle might work. So we can't assume that somebody is paid monthly, although we start to analyse the trends of which companies pay in which pay cycles. We know that there's been 11 transactions. We can then match that to the timeline that the candidate has provided and say, okay, yes, candidate X has worked at Tesco for that period of time. We can also then see that they've been paid by agency. We can see any benefits transactions that they may have had, so child tax credits, universal credits if they had a gap of employment. It literally will show everything that has gone into that candidate's account from a payment perspective, which then in two respects allows us to understand that individual's employment history, but it also allows us to identify where they may not have provided any details, so gaps or employments that haven't been included on a CV, or anything else that may lead to further questions. That allows us then to ask that candidate that question and provide the client with a little bit more detail around what that individual's background looks like, and is there something that may have been missed maybe throughout the recruitment process. So Giant are notified in real time, so we know straight away once the candidate has completed their part of it, and then we're able to then, as I said, see all the detail in real time, which shows that real-time data and accuracy. So what does that look like from a candidate perspective? So a number of our candidates who have had the majority of them have had very positive experiences. Some of them actually came forward with some feedback, which you can see on the screen there, which hopefully ties in with everything that we've chatted about throughout the process. I've said it before, and I've said it as we've gone through, the candidate experience is so important because ultimately that is what drives the delivery of our solutions. So what you can see there is some genuine feedback that's come through from candidates over the last 6 months. And what have our customers said? So I think it's fair to say that there may have been some reluctance from customers in the early stages of this, and I'm sure Kelly and Matt, our CEO, will back that up, but that was maybe around not understanding what that looked like or how that could be deployed in their business or what impact that may have had with them against the regulator. But once we've gone in and we've mapped that out and we've understood what that looks like for them specifically, we were then able to deliver some of the results that you can see on the screen. So we'll share these slides with everybody after the call, but what you can see there is some of the stats and also a statement from one of our customers around how they've utilised and had the benefit of fast check in their business. But yeah, 68% are connected. They were worried about that outdated screening process. They wanted to stay up to date with the market. They wanted to ensure that we really were testing what that candidate's background was and almost stress testing it to some extent. And Fast Check really allowed us to do that. 71% of those say they are likely to seek support confirming initial processes, so making sure that the candidate is compliant at the very, very beginning of their process in order to ensure that it was a streamlined process and that they weren't losing valuable recruitment time right the way throughout their screening process. And 89% of them believe that technology is safer and more secure when screening candidates, and again, that's very, very important. There's a balance between human versus technology, and I think this solution provides that perfect balance, because ultimately you still have that human understanding the results in the background and all that sort of thing. So yeah, very, very good. So yeah, keen to take any questions if there are any questions available, and I'll lean on Kelly for that. I think I've just seen something come through in the chat there.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm looking in the chat. We've got a few questions already, but if there are some more, I think now's the time to pop them in. Should we work through some of the ones that we've got already?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, so
yeah,
I'll just go from the top down. So Suzanne has asked about 2 accounts for wages and child tax credits. So actually the one before that is quite similar as well, with joint bank accounts. So how does this work with joint bank accounts first? So candidates will provide that consent to share the data. So when they're telling us their activity history, or whether it's employment or gap information, we're going to get one-time access to get validation on that. So they will then select the account that those transactions appear in. If it's a joint account, it's quite interesting, something you just touched on, Kerry, actually, about it bringing up undeclared employment. So I guess for us the process would be, if it's a joint account and there are additional transactions, we're looking for confirmation of the employer they've declared. Should there be any other in there, because this is a joint account, we would have that conversation, determine that it's not undeclared gaps in employment, and we still use that information to close off. So regardless of whether it's a joint or personal account, the process works the same. Okay, and then with that similar question on payments for income and maybe tax credits separately, again, that's the connection of the account. So as the candidates coming through, they're asked to connect the account transactions appearing. After they've done that, if there are any further accounts to connect, whether there's a further account for employment or for other payments, then they would go through that process again. So we bring all of that data back to again use that for validation on the activity that's been declared. I hope that answers those questions. Okay, data security.
Question next, Kelly.
Sorry, Kerry.
I think you're on Chris's question
next. Data security. So yeah, mentions of a red flag then, like you touched on earlier. We've had lots of conversations with our customers and the candidates about providing this information. So just to talk about the security, the solution is completely accredited, FCA regulated and GDPR compliant. Confer, our partner, are also accredited ASP against the Digital Identity Trust Framework. So all in all of those security credentials come together, aligning with our processes as well to provide that security. But we'll be providing some more information in a bit of a fact sheet following this, which I think will give more information on the security credentials.
And I think also, just to follow up on that, those accreditations have been based on
the next question. Yes, so it looks like an incredible tool. Sorry, Kerry, go on.
No, it's all right. I think there was just a dip in tech there, but I was just saying those accreditations have been based on the utilisation of multiple devices, so laptop, mobile, tablet. So those accreditations have covered off the utilisation of mobile devices as well. So as Kelly said, we'll follow up with that, but the accreditations will satisfy the need for mobile devices and things like that to be used. Yeah, you're on Jonathan's question next, Kelly.
Yes, so the next question is just about the restrictions to major banks. So I believe that it's maybe 95% plus of UK banks are now onboarding onto this platform. There are A few others, I think there's a major one, a cooperative bank, maybe not on there yet. There's a few that are not. In those cases, we are able to obviously relate back to our normal referencing process. But I think it's 95% of reaching banks, and that's increasing all of the time. Okay. I'm just looking through some of the other questions. Are there any more that you want to pick up on,
Adam actually makes a really good point there. He says, and I'll share it with the group for those that can't see. Thanks for the information. You mentioned some initial resistance from your clients. I believe Lloyds Banking Group have added this type of check to their policy, and in my experience in the financial sector is traditionally the most resistant to change and technology adoption. The question is then, do you see that being a trend, that there are a few major banks will take this option with more to follow? I think, yeah, absolutely. And I'll answer your question, Adam. I think absolutely the adoption, actually, you know, I don't mind saying the reluctance was from the financial services sector, but that's probably the biggest turnaround that we've seen. Those that we work within the financial services space now are those that are championing this in you know, great lengths. And I think we will see that develop as a trend as time goes on, that this will become a staple request from not only in the financial services sector. I think it will start to become a staple request as we go, as time goes through and more education is provided to the market based on the types of checks that are available as technology advancements develop.
Mm-hmm. And just to follow on from that, as well as Adam's added, is what's the future of this with the wider data? So obviously we're always developing these products with our partners, and there's this becoming wider in as the solution. I think that's a given, and there's going to be more data sources, more integrations, more readily available data for us to use to validate. We've not touched on the payroll side of this yet. We're concentrating on banking, but there is a whole payroll side of the connection where there's certain types of employees will be able to log into their payroll providers and again provide us with that information. So we're not only getting the gaps, so the dates of employment there, we're often getting the job title as well. And I know there's plans for that integration to be improved more recently. So we should see those connection rates and the amount of payroll providers that are active increase as well.
Okay. There's a question from Jill there around consent from joint bank account holders.
Yes, I think that's linked. I mean, that all links back to the one-time consent process of the account holder, and I think more information on that will be available for you in the fact sheet that we'll share following the call.
Brilliant. I think there are a couple of other questions there around what does cost look like. Can we share the slides and things like that? So yeah, absolutely. Slides will be shared after the recording. In relation to cost, this is actually provided as a standard in our managed service solution. There isn't an additional cost to this. If you wanted to run this as a standalone solution, again, we can provide what that cost looks like. But if you are a client of Giant Screening, this is a standard approach. You don't have to have it as a standard approach, but this is included within our managed service solution. So we can provide details on that if you'd like some, and I will follow up with you after that, Cheryl. I've just seen your question there. And yeah, just some really positive comments there. Thanks very much, Adam, in relation to the payroll angle, and Steve, again, thanks very much for that positive question, positive comment there. I'll just ask one more time: is there any other questions that anybody wants to ask, or anything that maybe wasn't clear that they want some further information on? And we can follow up either independently after the session, or arrange for, if you're one of our existing customers, you can contact our service delivery team, who will take you through how this can benefit your business, or if you've got any specific questions in relation to the solution, or if you are a new potential customer or you want to talk about this in any further detail, then my email address is on the screen there as well. Is there any further questions? If not, I will thank you all very much for your time. Hopefully it's been an informative session for you. If any of you would like to follow up after the call, you've got my details there. I'm available for the next couple of hours. I've kept my diary free, so more than happy to follow up specifically. Chris, I've just seen your point there. I'll follow up with you specifically after the call, if that's okay. I'll make contact with you. But thank you all so much for your time. That's appreciated. And yeah, look forward to having some more meaningful conversations in the future. Wishing you all a lovely remainder of the week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.